Okay, so we're going to try to do some details on our 2-point perspective. So once again, this is my picture frame, and I'm going to do my horizon line outside the picture frame. I'm going to start with a corner for 2-point perspective, and I'm going to take these points, just make some points here, back lightly to the horizon line. And I'm going to create a parallel line straight up and down. And another one over here. Okay, so now I'm going to say this is going to be a house. So in this house, I want to have a peak roof. So I need to find the center. So when you do it like you would normally do, finding a center, you'll find that when you find the center, it won't be what you think would be the center, because in perspective, the center is not the same as it is like if it was straight on the box. So you can see here that it's a little wider on this side than it is on that side. But visually, that is center. Like visually, your eye it'll feel like center. So we're gonna find a spot up here to create our peak of our house. So then we're just going to go from our center point out. And then we have this new point to go back to perspective point. And then we're going to take the same angle and we're just going to parallel it back. And usually houses have a little bit of overhanging on the roof, so we're going to have that new point go back. So that's our, and then this part. There's a peak of our house. You see that? Maybe some of this stuff. There you go. A little bit more visual. Okay, so now we have our house, and we can give it a little bit of a thickness without having to worry too much about perspective, since it's so tiny, nobody's really gonna care how that's quite. If it was wider, then you definitely want to make sure the angles are all right for perspective, but there's a little bit of a side there. Now anything we want to put on here, so let's say we're going to put on a door here. We know this is the center, and everything that is closer to you, the person, should be like wider than things that are further away. As they go further away, they get smaller, is the rule. So we're gonna do the top of our door here, and we're gonna make this side of the door, make sure it's parallel, a little wider than we do on this side of the door. It visually, it just looks better when you do that. I'm gonna give a little bit of a depth to that side, and a little bit of depth to the bottom here for the door frame. Okay. Now, say we want something that is coming off here, like a porch. So we want to put a porch here, say. Now, it has to start here. So let's give ourselves a straight starting point for where the porch is going to start. And we're going to have a porch start over here. So this is where it's attached to the house. Let's just put a post there, because porches often start with like a post. So let's just put a post starting our house. It has a little bit of thickness, so we should have a little bit of thickness. Go back to the point. If it was bigger, it would be a little more obvious. We're just gonna kind of eyeball it a little bit there. Now everything, obviously it's gonna start here because it's attached to the house. So we're gonna use the bottom of this, kind of where the house starts, with a little bit of thickness to go out, because that's the side of the porch now. And how deep we want the porch goes back to here. right? And then the porch has some, does it have some depth to it? Like, is there a basement in this house that goes straight down? And if it has some depth over here, that would go straight down. So say the porch, say there is a basement in this house, and maybe you can see a little bit of it or whatever. And then that would be where how thick the porch would be. So then we know that that's how high the porch is from where it started, right? And then remember that everything that is further away kind of looks, so they can decide kind of where that would be. It would technically be closer, but look like it has to be smaller looking. Oops. Sorry about that. Has to be smaller looking. So like we make it a little bit skinnier because it's further away. Make it a little bit closer because it is further away, and the appearance has to be closer. Has to be visually feel like it's that way. So now we know where the porch, straight up and down. Use your ruler, and then go back. So then that is kind of like the step out of the house. So this could be if you're building, like if you're doing a city or doing a porch on the top, like a deck up here, it could definitely be the same idea. You just figure out where your top deck is starting, and obviously it's gonna sit somewhere off the front, so then that would be the exact same idea. And then you can figure out how high this post would be by just um, having it from the original one, because they're obviously supposed to be the same size. Give it a little bit of thickness, and that would be like the second one. And then you could figure out how high the one in the back would be, straight up and down from that. And also it should be the same from here. If it doesn't work out, then there's some issues with how you did it, kind of thing. So then that kind of like perspectively how you draw something coming out off a building. Now, if you have windows, all the windows on the side of the building should kind of go back, and like I don't know how high you're, maybe the same height as the door. Um, and then this point always has to be parallel. If you don't have it parallel, then you have wonky looking windows. You're like, what the heck? Why is your windows so wonky? And remember, as you get closer, they should be bigger. So the windows closest to the corner should be wider than the windows further back. It just visually looks better. It just makes it look like they're the same size windows, but this one is further back than the other one. If you had something that was on an angle, that's a different trick altogether. Everything, if you have similar angles, they should parallel each other. If you have things coming off, I mean, circles, you could technically, for circles, if you really wanted to know what the perspective is, you could create the square and keep the circle within it. Just like if you were doing, say we put a sign here beside this house, like some kind of business sign. Not sure what the business would be. Let's just make it slightly below the horizon line. All the letters on this business should also follow perspective, and get, let's do like the letters in the middle there, and get smaller as they go as well, and keeping everything straight up and down, because if you don't keep it straight up and down, the perspective looks wonky. But see how that was not quite straight up and down, so that kind of looked funny off. There we go. That's a little better. And then if we're doing like an arrow maybe, then we can figure out where that arrow would meet halfway. Have a little arrow east that way. Kind of bugging me the nest a little bit. There we go. So I just want you to try maybe doing a really basic, just a basic something, a basic house, a basic something, some kind of basic, something in 2-point perspective that has things coming out of it, so you can practice that for because eventually we are going to do a project in perspective, and any practicing you do is good, and make sure you take pictures of it and submit them, um, submit them to me, showing that you have practiced somewhat in perspective, and showing me in this time, like first one we did boxes with letters. This time I'd like to see some practice in something coming out of the box. It could be just wacky shapes if you want that come out of the box. It could be like something like this, a little house, whatever you want to do. But just show me that you are practicing 2 points perspective and practicing some of the skills like finding center and figuring out where the center line is. Um, Using things that are coming out, like porches, or uh, using edging, like showing some. I'm just looking for some of your basic skills, starting starting your basic skills, um, and showing me that you're using the perspective skills, and so that when we get to the project that we're going to be doing on this, you have some basic skills down, and that's what I'm looking for. Okay? Thank you very much.